Okay, I think we are live. So, hi everyone, my name is Azriel, and I'm going to talk about the Amethyst game engine, as you shall see. So, here's the agenda, and we'll look at the history of how Amethyst came to be. We'll look at some of the philosophies that drive its design and the features it provides, some personal experience, and we'll show off some of the bits that some of the community have posted in the show off Discord channel in the Amethyst chat. Alright, so some history. Amethyst began with 2 first commits. I don't know how you do this on purpose, so I was quite amused. But alright, so yeah. So originally authored in 2016 by E.L. Calderon, was based on the BitSquid or Stingray game engine. That game engine has been discontinued late last year. So the original post is at this URL, but if we just go to the main page, it's like that, this nice quip. If you listen to a Unix shell, and you hear it C. It's pretty clever. I like that. Yeah, so right now, Amethyst is a 501c3 non-profit organization. That means it's registered as a legal entity somewhere in the United States. And it's got 24 members last I checked. It's also accepting donations if you do want to donate. Yeah, so just check out the README on the repository. There's Open Collective and Donor Box. I think Donor Box is preferred. Alright, so the philosophy of what drives Amethyst. So the Amethyst is built out of a number of highly composable modular components. So kind of adhering to the Unix philosophy. Like, so if you have like cat, sed, and whatever else commands, those are commands which they do one thing only, and they can be linked up with your various connectors. It's built on top of the Specs Entity Component System library, and this means you do not partition your data by object state, such as like player class, monster class, that kind of thing, but you partition it by behavior. So you're going to store the same type of data together. We'll see a pictorial form of that later. And the reason for that is it enables multi-threading. So, it drives your code to a design which it's easy to process your data in parallel. So we'll dive into each bit a bit more. So Unix philosophy: do one thing, and do it well. So this is on the Wikipedia page. There's like 2 more things after that. So quote. So WebShinra is a user of Amethyst, and he's probably a game developer. So he's used Unity and Godot, and those are 2 big game engines. And he said that Unity and Godot are relatively good at what they do, but they tend to bend the game designer in a specific direction. So you have to fit Unity or Godot's mold. Whereas for Amethyst, it doesn't force you into a specific design, and that means you have to kind of architect your game the way you want it to be. And if you do it badly, you would have to do some massive refactoring. So what that means, or kind of means, is over here you see in a traditional game engine, you'd see that the big purple blob up there is kind of like what the game engine would provide you, and it's got all of the low-level things sussed out. You just need to provide maybe your menus, your game objects, some interaction logic perhaps, and then plug those in. So you'd just be coding the bottom bits. Amethyst is more like this. So it provides you a number of separate crates. Each crate provides you bundles. That's a bit lower level, but so these bundles will wrap around existing libraries such as Rodeo for audio, graphics for graphics, specs for ECS, and Widget for input. And what you do is you plug your custom logic into those bundles, but you still need to wire them up at the end. So you're going to write the top and the bottom bits. So Amethyst is kind of like a wrap around each of these middle crates. You can also create your own bundles, and that's what you have to do to make a proper game, because Amethyst is quite low level. It only gives you, say, rendering. It gives you audio, like play or sound, but it doesn't help you link up, say, this object. When you do a key press, it has to play the sound and display the sprite. You have to do that yourself. Okay. And if you did the wiring badly, you'd have to do this massive refactoring, which I experienced. So if you look at this is actual real stats. It involves lots of regex, lots of strict conventions, say. And so because I'm just building a game as a solo developer, and I'm not a game developer, I figured how to do this, and it's not fun, but it's kind of fun at the end. All right. And for the ECS part of Amethyst, so ECS is Entity Component Systems. That's a way of structuring your data and logic. So can you guys see this? Yeah, okay, cool. So this is how you might structure your data for an object-oriented design. So say you have a game where you've got a player, a monster, and an energy blast. And each of them has position and velocity fields. The player has a name field, which is a string. Monster has a strength field, which is strength. Now, in an object-oriented design, you might have a collection of players. You might have a collection of, say, blast, and you might have a collection of monster. And each of those things perhaps stored in its own location. And the way you do it in ECS is, instead of storing these whole states of objects as your own object type, you would store the fields of different objects, but of the same field type, in a collection. So if you look over here, you are going to see that we're going to store things across. So the first collection is a collection of positions, second one's a collection of velocities, third one's a hash map of, like, say, strings, and finally your strength for monsters. So why would we do this? So if you are trying to implement a position update system based on velocity, you don't need to access all of the other fields at the bottom. So let's say if you have many fields apart from position and velocity, let's say you have 10 other fields below it. By fetching only the data that we need to compute the position update, we're going to save a lot of data transfer, and that's where you get a lot of cache benefit, because you are going to get a lot more cache hits by fetching only the data that you will be accessing. And so in this scenario, if we take away the types on the top, you can see that we just need to look at the field type without caring about what the object type is. Okay, so any questions about this so far?
Can you go back to the previous one?
Yeah.
So Anthony asked me a question, but I'll repeat it. Not to put you on the spot, but I think it's a good question. So he was saying, so your question was around memory.
Yeah.
So for this to work, I'll say what I think it is, and then you can correct me. I think for each of your processing units that you're working through the locations, copy these into a working set that you hand to the new location calculator. And they can crunch through all of this using that data set without having to, like I was saying, without having to be touching any of the other fields. But you can do that in parallel.
So I guess my thought about this was, a semantic point of view or from a memory layout point of view. And if you're doing it from a memory layout point of view, that seems like the wrong motivation. And you could address with another process like using memory store, which is the third thing.
Yeah, so actually we do it for both. So the memory swizzling, yes, that does happen with, there are some clever compilers which, if you do store your fields in the form of x, y, z, and you're going to combine like x plus x, y plus y, z plus z, there are some clever compilers which can optimize for that. But for the semantic point of view, let's say we've got a new type which has both position and velocity. We do not need to, say, implement movable for this new type and then make sure that new type, the implement movable is stored alongside all the other movable objects. So if we attach position and velocity components, the ECS system will be able to say, oh, well, just, I don't care what type it is, as long as it's got these two components, we'll operate over that. Yeah. There's another talk in the last meetup, it's also recorded, that goes into more detail. Cool. See. Any more questions?
You explained really well in that talk about the cache hits that you get by providing the memory out and the way that you do it.
I know how that works. I was wondering about the semantic, like, does it change the semantic meaning of it? Is that the motivation for the performance? Because they can be separated.
Yeah, so a little point on that was with the behavior invariant maintained, like anything with position and velocity are updated, you lose the state invariant, which is you're not sure if, so if you create a player and forget to attach position or velocity, that's invalid state for a player. But object-oriented style of programming will not allow you to do that. So because the compiler will tell you, no, you need to have everything, whereas this will allow you to not forget to do the behavior for each of the types. Cool. Okay, so that was the breather. Okay, so we're going to go into features. It's really fast. All right, so features, we're going to go through each of them at a really high level. We can talk about more detail if you so wish later on. So for rendering, we currently use the graphics crate to render using OpenGL as a backend. This is in the works to be replaced by Rendy, which is backed by Graphics Hell, which is a layer on top of these different backends. So Vulkan is like the next OpenGL thing. DirectX, that's Microsoft's low-level graphics APIs. Metal is Apple's low-level APIs. Microsoft, I think, supports Vulkan. Metal does, Apple does not. And Graphics Hell does not support OpenGL at this point in time. So when we do switch, we'll lose OpenGL support actually until they do do the work to get support up for that one. So what Amethyst can do. Oh, yes.
Does Android support Vulkan?
Does
Android
support Vulkan? Good question. I forget. I looked it up before.
So you lose Android support.
Yeah, but we don't have it yet. Alright, so Amethyst can render in 2D, and I think it's still kind of like 3D. With a 3D camera, you need to be careful with the Z coordinates and direction, otherwise it's pretty hard to debug, whereas it can do 3D as well. So this is one of the examples. Actually, both of these are examples from the Amethyst repository. For asset loading, if you some terminology here, because I was not a game dev, I don't think I am yet. Asset is configuration or data loaded at runtime. Yeah, so like audio files, textures, aka images, and maybe character scripts, like behaviors for your object in game. So what is asset loading? Is it like file read, parse, right? It's more than that. So what Amethyst provides is it provides asynchronous asset loading, which means when you tell Amethyst load this asset, it's going to return you a handle to the asset, which will be loaded. And later on, you can query the asset store for that particular type with the handle and say, hey, I got this handle, can you give me the asset for it? If the asset was loaded in the meantime, it'll give you the data. If it was not loaded, it'll give you none. And you can tell it, here's a progress tracker, and it will, I'll query the progress tracker to wait till assets are all loaded before querying the asset store, if I really need the asset to be loaded before I progress to the next state. Yeah, sorry, no pictures. And it can also provide you hot reload support if you use the asset loader correctly, which took me a while. Okay, so hot reload is going to be demoed. So this guy, so that's slower than I thought. All right. So on the right here, you can see that there's two characters on screen. They're like breathing. And on the left, you see some character sprites, which are used by the game. So let's say I'm an artist and I decide to improve the sprites. Alright. When I save that, you can see that immediately the assets have been reloaded and are used by the game. So that's yeah, yeah. So it's pretty cool. And if you come from a, say, enterprise-y software background, like restarting services across lots of machines to pick up configuration, that's kind of a pain. I know this is local, but it's still quite cool to see that config picked up straight away by your system without having to rejig it. Yeah, so I can undo that and it'll revert. All right, so that's a nice nice feature for, say, content creators when they are developing a character or other object. There's this Warmy crate, which is not used in Amethyst, but it looks pretty good when I looked at the docs for it. It also provides you the ability to say, I've got this asset and it can be reloaded from file system or from in memory. So perhaps if you've got something computed in memory and your object reads off that computed thing, you can also use Warmy to perhaps do your asset hot reload. Okay, any questions about that? Yeah.
What do you implement a hot reload?
How do you implement hot reload? I don't know. This is what Amethyst writes. But theoretically, you have a component called a handle to the asset, and it's got a, say, mutex to the resource that backs it, and when the resource needs to be updated, when it changes, you lock that resource, update it, and then release it, and everyone else can read the new value. Yeah.
So does it just check it every frame, or does it listen to operating system events?
So you can choose. I think Warmy lets you listen to OS events, whereas Amethyst currently lets you choose by polling or on demand, like you kick it. Yeah, so I don't think it has a listen to OS events yet, but we can always accept contributions. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
How often have you used in an actual game? I know development's really important, but during actual gameplay, would that be something that's useful?
Doing actual gameplay, so the one useful thing would be to, say, loading resources on demand when a character is progressing through a map. Yeah, and if, say, there's a bug in this map and you want to push it to everybody while you're playing the game, it'll be useful to, say, have a stream instead of a file system source. You have a network stream and reload based on that. Yeah.
It can be really useful for aggressive loading
Yeah.
over the net as well, because you could load a low resolution.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, let's go. So networking. So Amethyst provides a basic networking crate, and what we have is we've got the Amethyst network crate, and that backs onto something called Laminar. Laminar is a protocol built over UDP with some TCP features. So we all know UDP is unreliable, but really fast. And Laminar lets you choose whether you want unreliable, unordered, and the positive versions of that. So like reliable, ordered, or there's one more variant called sequence, which is give me everything that you receive in order. If you receive anything older than my current packet, like timestamp or something, I don't know what you use, just discard the older packet. Cool. Yeah, I have not gone too deep into that, but there's a really quick demo. If I go to the next one, the top is the server, and it's listening for messages. The bottom's the client, and if I run it and quickly stop it, you can see that, oh no, it's still running. Okay. Yeah, they're not very responsive, but we shall ignore that. They'll stop in time. All right. All right. So that was network. So UI is say your like widgets and text boxes, checkboxes, that kind of thing. We've got some work in progress. This is an actual screenshot I found in the repository. I don't know why they kept it. Maybe just no one bothered to update. This is the current state of the UI example. So it's got a very basic square font. Oh, it can load a system font as well. It's got very bare layout things, so top left, middle, bottom right, and then a little text field. I know you can't actually see it editable right now, but this needs a major rework, and I think that's slowly happening, but wait a while. Yeah, there's no. I don't think UI will be in a usable. What you would expect from a UI library for quite a while, because I don't think Rust really has that many mature ones. Maybe Piston is the closest to pure Rust UI library, but there are many library bindings to other existing UI libraries. I have not seen that many being tried with Amethyst though. Like IMGUI is the only one I've seen run with Amethyst together. Theoretically, you can get Piston to run with Amethyst, but I have not seen that as well. Okay, and thread profiler. So thread profiling is good for profiling your code, so like finding bottlenecks. So if you are a game developer, you tend to have maybe 16 milliseconds between frames, like that's a 60 frame per second game, or 33 milliseconds if you're lucky, like 30 frame per second game, which is not that common nowadays, I guess. What you do is, so Amethyst backs into this thread profiler crate, and you simply sprinkle like this line of code everywhere in your code, and every time you've got this profile scope, it's going to create a scope for your profiling, and when you run your application, close it, Amethyst will dump a file called threadprofile.json in your working directory, and you can open that at Chrome with Chrome. And what that looks like, I'll show you the file itself first, which is it's like just a JSON thing. Not very interesting, but open that with Chrome and you get this. So what you see here is you got your threads on the left. Amethyst by default spawns a number, I think the same number as the number of cores on your computer. Each of these blocks on the right are profile scopes, and hopefully you can see that down on these areas, there's a lot of tiny small lines, which are also scopes. They're just really zoomed in, small. So let's go back here. So purple means it's a fixed update. If we zoom in, that's the fixed update. And you can see that there's this small line. If we keep zooming into that one, that's our transform system, which it's to do with updating positions of your game entities. You can see that it takes like 3 microseconds. So you get, well, if your systems are good, they should take small amounts of time. If you do see like big areas here, then you know you've got a high area of place where the potential bottleneck is. Probably I don't think you can tell CPU or I/O from here, but you can tell time, and you can drill down from there. So I think we've got test automation. So test automation is also to do with quality. So test automation, there is a crate called Amethyst test, and what that allows you to do is, if you are building your Amethyst application, you're coding, say, a system which transforms some data, you can say, I want an Amethyst application with some base state. Blank over here just means nothing. I want to add my system to the ECS systems, and given some setup, say I create some entities with some components. Behind the scenes, between each setup and assertion, or between each method call, this test framework will run your system. And that way you can tell if I have an entity at some position and some velocity, the next call should give me the updated position, and I can assert that my system that I just coded works. So in a way, it's hiding a lot of detail for setting up that Amethyst application in the background, and you get your nice clean test with just the detail you need. So it should be easier to, in this case, writing unit or integration tests for parts of the game. So for myself, that's one of my happy areas, because I like to make sure code that I write is correct. And even though the Rust compiler is good at catching errors at compile time, with Amethyst you tend to get more runtime errors. So this is a nice little tool to have. Okay, I think there's other, and then there's a reader. All right, so other are features which I will not go into too much detail, but they're useful to know about. So there's audio, place, sound. It's not very mature right now, but I think someone's going to pick up the work to improve the usage of that. Animation is to do with data transformations over time, time being clock time, because it doesn't let you plug in your own logical time, so you can't control time within your game right now. You can only say, I want this animation with certain keyframes, and let's say my character is going to walk and punch. It's going to animate that over time and interpolate. Say I've got a frame like this and one like that. It's going to interpolate the movement of the character. Editor, there's a proof of concept. So if you are familiar with Unity, you've got a nice graphical editor which you can see your game objects and tweak them. We've got a proof of concept which I've opened over here. Let's make it big. So right now it's only read only, so we'll wait for that to cycle. But you'll see that there will be a paddle over here which moves up and down. Okay, and watch this value. So it moves based on the paddle. So it's read only to the value of the component of that paddle. We cannot write to it yet. This one's written in Electron with a core that just read from Amethyst at runtime. Okay, So prefabs are pre-made fabrications. If you work in the say cloud or DevOps space, a prefab to Amethyst is like a CloudFormation template to Amazon Web Services, or Heat to OpenStack, or Terraform to everything else. Yeah, so that's what prefabs are. It's pretty difficult to understand. Well, the code is difficult to understand. So I wrote some docs recently which mostly cover simple cases. The complex cases are hard to document. So yeah, physics and WebAssembly, there's not much support for that right now. I don't think WebAssembly's got any support because I think we were waiting for Firefox to have multi-threading enabled. Do you know? 68. Yeah, because the shared array buffer thing. Yeah.
We're aiming at 68. Not promising.
Okay. Yeah, so I think Chrome's enabled that, but I think we're still waiting on Firefox for some reason. And also, we don't have much time. All right. So, breather before we go on. Any questions? Wow. Either you all understood everything or no one understood anything. All right. Okay, so my personal experience. So I am not a game dev. I'm more like an automation dev, but I'm trying to make a game. And what I found with Amethyst is errors are pretty difficult to troubleshoot. So as I mentioned before, Rust has good error messages at compile time, but Amethyst, the errors you get are usually at runtime. And for the same symptoms, you can have multiple different errors. And the error messages that you get, you don't actually have error messages most of the time. So you're going off like feeling where you last touched code. Yeah, so that's a pretty difficult thing. There is a nightly feature you can enable which tells you a good enough information for one type of error, which hits most new users. But if you're a new user to Amethyst, enable the nightly feature and use the nightly compiler, you get type ID names when you hit a runtime error, and that's very useful. If you are developing and using Amethyst, expect API instability. The only stable part of Amethyst is it runs on Rust stable. Yeah. So at least you have that. And expect to read source, because I think the documentation suffers from the Git problem, the Git problem is when you ask someone to explain Git, they will explain Git in terms of Git. Like on the branch you have commits, and commits make up a branch. So which is like circular definitions, and to a person who has not used version control before, it's all very confusing. So the docs they sometimes get better, but we do need to work on that quite a lot. And we're all volunteers, so yeah. And expect to change source. So because Amethyst is quite low level, sometimes when you want to do something, that low level thing doesn't provide you that ability, or it provides you that ability in a very roundabout way. So like Amethyst animation, if you want to change sprites over certain intervals, I guess now it's not too bad, but you have to go through these layers of how a 3D game does animation, and that's a lot more complex than how you would do it in a 2D game, say. So if you want to make it easier, you do need to create your own abstractions, usually feed it back to Amethyst, and away you go. Okay, so that was my experience. Let's look at some of the existing stuff people have done. So, show off. These are collected from the Discord chat, so it's quite hard to go back and find who it belongs to. But yeah, Yeah. So there's a bubble shooter. I haven't actually seen this play. I've only got the screenshot. There's this really nice terrain thing. Yeah, for lack of a better word. So you can see that there's a mini map which shows what each cube or which coordinate on the map has. And there's, I don't know what this thing is. Alright, so there's this side scroller. Yeah, that's normal for games. And there's this shooter, Toho style, where you've got your bullets, and there's no collision in this one. But hey, it's quite hard to get your pattern for the bullet to work, so I think the person was quite happy with that. And this one is by Web Shinra, the person who was quoted earlier. It's quite cool. So if you watch the water, it's moving. Like the hexagon house, they're moving. Yeah. Cool. I think this one's the most polished one I've seen every time he posts. So it's quite nice to see the progress. And because the last talk we didn't go through the thanks slides, we put it first. Alright, so thanks to the Amethyst community for creating a lot of good stuff in the game engine, and thanks to the Rust community for like helping when there's lots of obscure errors. Yeah, and Movio for providing this venue. And just links to the slides and various other places. Are we game yet is with the Rust are we something yet location, and there's a number of other game engines out there. I did not list Piston here, but GG, Easy, and Amethyst and Piston were the first three that were available at the time I was choosing a library. I happened to not choose GG Easy because of the SDL2 requirement. I think that might be going away soon, but there we go. Crayon and Tetra. So Crayon, I think existed at the time. I just didn't find it. It looks pretty promising as a game engine as well. And Tetra is one of the newer ones. I have not tried it, I haven't seen it, but the developer is quite active. And Gate is the game engine that lets you write games for the web, so using WebAssembly. And there are at least 2 games that run on that, quite nice as well. So if you're picking something for using WebAssembly, try Gate. Okay, so any questions?
Do you have a feel for how many, I guess, big commercial games are made with Rust?
Okay, so last I heard, so Chucklefish did try Rust, but they have stopped because they couldn't sustain developing 2 game engines at the same time, so they've gone back to C, I think, C++. I cannot remember this one. One of the developers is Redby. They are using, I should know this because they do donate quite a bit to Amethyst. They are using Rust to develop their game, and I think there's a third one, but I can't remember, but there were at least 3 big companies.
There's blanking on the name, something by Dawn.
Oh, Ready by Dawn? Yeah, I think that's the one.
So that's a AAA game studio, and one of the founders got on Twitter and did this whole long thing about how he was done C++, and everything would be written in Rust after that. So I guess he's still banging on about Rust.
Ready yet? No.
It does sound like quite a natural fit for games. Like games got a huge history of resources and existing libraries and
I think it's the way to do everything. We do it half in C++, half in Rust. It's so much easier.
frustrations of problem.
I did hear that about, I thought Witchbook was still in Rust. Is that not the case? So Witchbook is the next game by the first
Chucklefish. I don't know, actually.
So, yeah, there's definitely a few.
Well, I've seen quite a few indie ones that are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So plans for the physics engine. We are running on N algebra, and we're meant to, I think, tie into N collide. I'm not sure if that's right. Great, but there's a crate developed right now called N physics dumb or something, and algebraic physics dumb. Yeah, they suffix it with dumb because it's pretty much a hack to get N physics to work with an algebra with Amethyst. I don't know.
In terms of,
Yeah?
a hack in terms of,
As in, it's probably not coded optimally. Yeah, so it might still work correctly, but it might not be efficient, kind of thing. Cool. I think that's us.